We're kicking off today with Monday Night Raw, which started with Drew McIntyre once again setting his sights on CM Punk and claiming Punk was avoiding him with evidence behind this accusation. McIntyre noted how Punk had a timely arrival last week, just as McIntyre departed, before turning his attention to the paper champion, Damian Priest. The Scottish Warrior expressed his disdain for Priest's WrestleMania cash-in and shared his belief that he deserved the championship spotlight instead. These words brought out Priest, who reminded McIntyre of the numerous times he thwarted attempts to cash in the Money in the Bank, prioritizing his feud with Punk over Priest's plans. Priest also brought up the well-being of his family, but in a surprising turn, the champion offered McIntyre a fair opportunity for a title match once his elbow has healed. It remains to be seen when this match will take place, but a showdown between two Raw powerhouses will be one to watch, with the World Heavyweight title on the line. This was a solid opening to the show that presented Priest more like a babyface, a direction WWE appears to have been heading in even before his match at Backlash. In the run-up to that show, Priest made it clear he didn't want the Judgment Day's help in his match, as the champion is leaning into being a face, or at least a tweener. It'll freshen up his character that has only scratched the surface of his capabilities as champion. And what did you make of Priest granting McIntyre a future world title match? 2024 has been a huge year for Damian Priest, who in addition to holding the World Heavyweight Championship, recently signed a new deal with the promotion. Now more has come to light about this deal, which came in the nick of time according to Fightful Select, as his previous contract was set to expire in February. Despite WWE letting his contract run close to expiring before re-signing him, it said that retaining Priest was always a priority, and both sides engaged in extensive discussions. A unique detail of Priest's deal is his newfound autonomy over his theme, as he was allowed to provide vocals for his new theme in a sign of creative freedom not afforded others. Reports suggest that his new theme song has garnered widespread acclaim within WWE circles, further enhancing Priest's standing within the company. Priest has also secured representation with Paradigm Talent Agency, expanding his professional footprint beyond the confines of WWE, so fans could see much more of him out of the ring soon. A lot has changed in WWE's talent relations landscape in the wake of Priest re-signing, but one thing fans can count on is seeing the World Heavyweight Champion for years to come. Over the last few weeks, Dominik Mysterio has been working with Carlito, and Damian Priest hasn't been pleased to see his ally with the XLWO star. Priest was irked that Dominik was seen with Carlito to start with, especially given Carlito's return in Puerto Rico, and has been adamant since the veteran started appearing on Raw. This week, Carlito was in the Judgment Day's locker room with the faction, including Dominik, and Damian Priest, coming back from his opening Raw segment, was not happy to see him. Carlito asked if he could join the group with both Rhea Ripley and Dominik sidelined, and while Priest turned him down, Carlito said he'd convince the Archer of Infamy. Carlito returned to WWE by costing Priest his Backlash 2023 match with Bad Bunny, so it's not hard to see why the world champion doesn't trust a man with a track record of betrayal. Raw also saw the continuation of the enigmatic QR code saga, which has seen codes and glitches intermittently pop up during WWE TV, keeping fans speculating on what's next. On last week's Raw, another QR code appeared that teased the presence of a cloaked figure, and last week's SmackDown saw an eerie version of WWE's intro video with a dark message. This week's Raw delivered perhaps the most compelling clues yet, with the QR code appearing during the Queen of the Ring match between Shayna Baszler and Io Sky. Scanning the code took fans to a web page featuring multiple image files, and these images depicted a cryptic message or drawing on a piece of paper. Various other artifacts are featured, including a newspaper clipping of a missing woman, pen drives, and a floppy disk arranged on a desk with another clue. The date 5/16/2024 can be seen on the disc, which is this Thursday, and the disc had a 4 p.m. timestamp on it, indicating when fans can expect something to happen. The disc also had the word witch on it, which some have taken as a sign of a female member of an upcoming stable, which is where many believe this angle is heading. The message contained within the images hinted at a profound sense of liberation and purpose, suggesting a figure behind the scenes orchestrating events. The cryptic phrases, such as, "I reminded him of who he was," and "I finally know my purpose and everyone will see," add layers to the mystery, leaving fans eager for answers. A message also asks if you want to meet them again, implying that a group is coming rather than an individual, which is later stressed upon with the phrase, "They are not alone anymore." The current theory among fans is that this QR code mystery is leading to the return of Bo Dallas's Uncle Howdy with a faction that had been planned back during Bray Wyatt's return. Dexter Lumis, Joe Gacy, and Eric Rowan are tied to this faction, as is Nikki Cross, who could be the witch referenced on the floppy disk from Raw. This faction could do plenty on WWE TV, and the enigmatic clues provided on Raw have only deepened the intrigue to this mystery, with answers possibly as soon as this Thursday. In one of the last first-round matches of the King of the Ring tournament, LA Knight defeated Santos Escobar, but their match took place at an untelevised live event. On Twitter, Knight responded to criticism of the move and said that while he appreciates support from fans, there's no need to disparage live events or those who attend. Knight added that live events are where WWE superstars have the most fun, as they are able to do things without the pressures of a global TV audience. The reason for the match being off TV is that WWE had a lot of tournament matches to run through in relatively little time, and couldn't wait until the next SmackDown to have the match. Knight's quarterfinals match will see him face Tama Tonga, but his long-term WWE status is unclear, as Fightful Select reports that he and WWE are still negotiating a new deal. The two sides are said to be nowhere close to an agreement, which is concerning given the finances, but both parties are under the impression a deal should be agreed soon. Knight has become one of WWE's most popular acts, and the company would be wise to keep him on board, but for now, his contract continues to tick away. Back to Raw now, and before the King of the Ring quarterfinals match between Kofi Kingston and Gunther, Samantha Irvin announced the return of a WWE legend. Past and present collided as Irvin brought back former Raw announcer Lillian Garcia, much to the delight of the WWE Universe in attendance. Garcia began the announcements by introducing Kofi Kingston, while Irvin delivered her impactful announcement of Kingston's opponent, Gunther. Lillian Garcia was a ring announcer for WWE for years and is clearly well respected, and it was fun to see her on this week's episode of Raw. In August 2023, mere days before All In, Cash Wheeler was arrested and charged with assault with a firearm after he flashed a gun at a driver during Cash experiencing road rage. Despite the charge, Wheeler was allowed to travel to London for All In, where FTR defeated the Young Bucks, and now there's been a major update in his case. PW Insider reports that the prosecutor's office had filed a nolla prosequi, indicating their decision to abandon the case and forego pursuing charges against Wheeler. The reasons behind this decision are undisclosed at this time, but this decision comes mere days before Wheeler was set to stand trial on May 20th. Wheeler had pled not guilty to the charge against him, and throughout his legal proceedings had remained active on TV and had faced the Elite and House of Black, among others. Later this month, Wheeler will be part of Anarchy in the Arena at Double or Nothing, and he'll be entering that match without any legal charges against him. As previously reported, Vince McMahon and others have filed a motion to compel arbitration in the suit from Janel Grant, which, if successful, will see the case be settled out of court. In his motion for arbitration, McMahon had a series of disparaging remarks against Grant and her lawsuit, which led to Grant's legal team filing a motion of their own. Grant's motion was for McMahon's comments, seen as an attack on her character to undermine her credibility, to be stricken from the record, but McMahon is fighting to stop that from happening. In the latest response, McMahon's legal team alleged that these statements against Grant offer relevant context to the motion to compel arbitration in this case. The response adds that Grant's motion to strike lacks merit and represents the height of hypocrisy, given the claims made against McMahon in the initial lawsuit. To make things even more interesting, WWE joined Vince McMahon in filing motion to compel arbitration as well, and John Laurinaitis has also sided with his former employer. With all parties signaling a possible shift to arbitration, upcoming developments will be crucial, and it remains to be seen whether this case goes to a public trial or not. In our first match of the night, Io Sky and Shayna Baszler delivered a barn burner in the Queen of the Ring quarterfinals, which could easily be the match of the entire tournament. Sky assumed the babyface role for the sake of the match, and while it may have been odd to see the Damage Control member work face, it worked better given Baszler's punishing style. Sky weathered the offense of her opponent and seemingly had a counter for everything the Queen of Spades threw at her, and putting her away with the over-the-moonsault. This was a great match worth revisiting if Triple H doesn't have stories readily available for the pair, and we've seen Baszler thrive against smaller, quicker high flyers such as Kairi Sane. Going back to this one could be the spark Baszler needs to rediscover her edge and a push on the main roster, all while giving Sky something to do after her women's title run. In our second Queen of the Ring quarterfinals match, Valkyria went 2-0 on the main roster with a win over the seasoned Zoey Stark. Tested by Stark's intensity, the former NXT Women's Champion absorbed everything and countered the Z360 before getting the win with the Nightwing. Valkyria continues to come across as a star, a testament to her work in NXT, and this is a great example of how her style lends itself to matches with women of different backgrounds. Now she'll turn her attention to Io Sky, an opponent much different to Stark in terms of offense, and this should make for a great showdown. In a backstage segment, Pearce announced a fatal 4-way tag team match which will determine the #1 contenders for the World Tag Team Championships. Valkyria will go on to face Io Sky on next week's Raw for a place in the finals, but it appears WWE has already spoiled the result of that match, and others. During a series of graphics promoting upcoming matches, both Valkyria and SmackDown's Tiffany Stratton were shown wearing attires that fully covered their bodies. If you've not seen a WWE event in Saudi Arabia, the women wrestle in these attires to adhere to local attitudes, and these graphics have seemingly spoiled the finals of the Queen of the Ring. Unless something major happens, expect Lyra to beat Sky next week, and for Stratton to advance, and for it to be a meeting of the former NXT Women's Champions in Jeddah. Kofi Kingston got an early advantage in his quarterfinals match by attacking Gunther before the bell, attacking the right leg and knee of the Austrian in payback for Xavier Woods. An ill-fated high-flying move, however, landed Kingston in his opponent's arms, who sent him back first into the ring apron and barricade before delivering a Boston Crab on the table. Both nursed injuries in the match, and at one point Kingston rocked Gunther with Trouble in Paradise on the floor, but the record-breaking ex-Intercontinental Champion beat the 10 count. Gunther recovered long enough to deliver a powerbomb and Boston Crab for the submission win, and it should be no surprise that this was another show stealer by the Austrian. This was a smartly wrestled match with an overarching story and punishing physicality, and should remind fans why Gunther should be in the conversation for the best wrestler going. Now Gunther looks ahead to the semifinals and a match with either Jey Uso or Ilya Dragunov, with both options making for an extraordinary encounter. Chad Gable continued to mistreat Alpha Academy and revealed that Otis will battle Sami Zayn and Akira Tozawa will face Bronson Reed before insulting Maxine Dupree some more. After Chad teased training Ivy Nile, our next segment saw Kiana James officially arrive on the scene, interrupting a segment with Pearce and the Awesome Truth. In the Bronson Reed vs. Akira Tozawa match, things went as one would expect, with Reed squashing Tozawa in seconds with the tsunami. This was totally unnecessary, as we know Reed is a force to be reckoned with, and a win over Tozawa was never going to change or enhance that. In the Sami Zayn-Otis match, Chad Gable ordered Otis not to hit the worm, but Otis did it anyway, but missed when he went for the splash, giving Sami the opening to get the win with a haluva kick. Gable was furious post-match and berated Otis more, even going as far as to slap him, but the powerhouse didn't strike back and meekly followed his coach to the back. The inevitable Otis turn on Chad is going to turn him back into one of the biggest baby faces in the company, potentially on par with his run during the Mandy Rose romance. Are you excited for that? And where do you want to see these characters go from here? Let us know down below. Becky Lynch took on Dakota Kai on this week's Raw, and the match ended with Io Sky and Kairi Sane getting involved when Kai was trapped in an arm breaker. This gave the Women's World Champion the DQ win, and Valkyria made the save for Lynch post-match, clearing the ring of heels and staring down with next week's opponent Io Sky. Liv Morgan appeared from out of nowhere, sent Lynch into the ring post, and escaped to the arena floor in a segment highlighting the wealth of talent in Raw's women's division. Lynch vs. Kai was solid, but it was the post-match that left the impression with Damage Control looking to re-establish dominance, and the escalation of the Lynch-Morgan feud. Throw in the surging Valkyria, and these are all building blocks for Raw going forward, with some guaranteed great in-ring action along the way. Backstage, JD McDonough warned Braun Strowman to stay out of Judgment Day business, and the Monster Among Men hardly took the much smaller competitor seriously. In the aforementioned four-way, it was New Catch Republic, the Creeds, AOP, and the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough, who delivered an action-packed match. With a shot at the World Tag Team titles up for grabs, the match ended with Carlito attacking a surging Pete Dunne and delivering a backstabber on the announce table. This allowed for Finn Balor to get the win after a coup de grace on Dunne, and Carlito did indeed prove himself valuable to the Judgment Day in securing the faction a title opportunity. What that means for him in his pursuit of a "you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours" arrangement remains to be seen, but the look on the winner's face suggests that they've been won over by Carlito. And in our main event of the night, Jey Uso ended the hopes of Gunther vs. Dragunov next week by getting a hard-fought win over the Mad Dragon in the quarterfinals match. Dragunov lost nothing in defeat, having delivered the same tenacity and hard-hitting offense that is a trademark of his in-ring work, and he was clearly the better wrestler in the match. Uso, though, caught him with a spear late and delivered the Uso Splash to secure the win and set up a rematch with Gunther on next week's show. Even if fans wanted to see Ilya win, the crowd were happy to see Jey advance, and the Fireflies are definitely a fixture of his entrance after what we saw in France. Some would argue that Dragunov oversells, but he does a hell of a job of putting his opponent's offense over, a solid trait by someone working on a roster of talented individuals. Now Jey will face Gunther in the semifinals, and in their first encounter, Jey failed to dethrone the then Intercontinental Champion thanks to interference from his brother Jimmy. With Jimmy out of the picture, it'll be interesting to see if Jey's undeniable popularity sees him topple Gunther and head to Saudi Arabia in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. The excitement didn't stop after Raw though, as Jey had fun with the crowd and made the referee and Samantha Irvin yeet once the show was over. Gunther even teased yeeting and breaking character, but ultimately stayed true to who he is and attacked Jey, a preview of their match next week. Recently, it was reported that WWE had been exploring changes to their domestic premium live events, and this could mean a major change to when these events take place. PW Insider reports that WWE has been considering a return to the 7 p.m. format used in previous years, with NXT Heatwave, SummerSlam, and the Bash at Berlin all using this old format. In addition to this change, it's possible that WWE will bring PLEs back to Sunday nights, following comments made by UFC President Dana White on a post-fight night press conference. White said the WWE PLEs would be on Sundays to fit around UFC events on Saturday, so it's unclear if this adjustment will be permanent or just sporadic when UFC shows also happen. Despite the potential shift, WWE still has a packed schedule of premium live events, including the upcoming King and Queen of the Ring on May 25th. It remains to be seen whether PLEs return to Sunday nights, but what do you think of the idea? Let us know in the comments section below. In March, Richard Bryant filed a lawsuit claiming he'd suffered nearly total hearing loss in his right ear due to pyro at a 2022 edition of SmackDown, and now WWE has filed back. WWE has successfully obtained an extension from the court to extend the deadline for when they have to respond, and will now have until June 3rd to give an official response. In his suit, Bryant also mentions foot injuries unrelated to the alleged hearing loss, raising questions about the suit's consistency, and will continue to follow this case for updates. We've got sad news to report now, as Bob Bruggers, who was part of the AWA, NWA, and other territories in the 1970s, has died at the age of 80. Bruggers' career ended in 1975 during the plane crash that also retired Johnny Valiant and nearly ended the career of a young Ric Flair, and our condolences go out to Bruggers' loved ones. It was earlier this year that Maurice underwent surgery for a precancerous condition that required a total hysterectomy, and was pleased to announce that she was cancer-free. 9 weeks on, Maurice shared an update via Instagram as she was pleased to be back in the gym after not being able to do so for months. Maurice hopes to be back in the gym every day now that she's able to work out again, and we're continuing to wish her the absolute best on her recovery. And we're ending with King of the Ring news, as in a first-round match, Rey Mysterio lost to Kofi Kingston, but the Ultimate Underdog may have a hard time remembering this defeat. On Instagram, Rey gave Kingston his proverbial flowers and admitted that Kofi knocked him out for several seconds during their match, a sign as to how hard-hitting their match was.